It is All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. We are continuing our series, Off the Road, speaking with musicians and artists about their experiences with the pandemic and other crises that are taking place. You can hear everything that we've aired so far at hawaiipublicradio.org. Today we are welcoming the gifted lead singer, violin, viola player from 10,000 Maniacs, Mary Ramsey, who has been with the band for decades, performed with them, in fact, last year when they made their triumphant Hawaii debut. You may also know her from her work in the folk duo John and Mary. She's got an impressive resume, lots of other stuff, too, as you'll be able to hear. Also includes some big names, it looks like, that we'll try to explore with her. From reading on their Facebook page, like a lot of musicians and touring artists, 10,000 Maniacs have had their career impacted by the virus, with tour dates interrupted, and we'll find out other ways it's impacted both the band and our guest as we welcome the voice of 10,000 Maniacs, the great Mary Ramsey. Mary, aloha, mahalo, great to talk with you again.
Well, aloha, mahalo, great to talk with you too.
And first, let's set the scene. Where are you right now? And is this where you've been since the pandemic crisis began?
Yes, I'm in Buffalo, New York. And yes, I've been here. We haven't really gone anywhere outside of the area, outside of Western New York. But yes, I live in the city in a little house that's very close to another little house. And, it's been interesting to not be on tour, to not travel, to be home so much. I certainly am much more aware of my yard and weeds and
Right.
and sounds of the neighborhood.
Well, and no question, it does. It's done that in so many ways for folks. It's new awakenings and awarenesses of things, especially when you have a different routine. It can shed light on those things. And before we hear what you're up to these days during it, let's go back to that earlier part of the year, if we can, when the virus was first making news in the United States. And based on your memories, kind of walk us through how it impacted 10,000 Maniacs and the tour.
Well, like many groups, we had a lot of shows on the books for this whole year, and we had done shows in January. We did shows in Park City, and then we were doing shows we always do these shows at City Winery in Chicago. We do this Valentine's Day kind of residency there, and then at the end of February, we were outside of New York City doing 3 shows, and so. Right, it was right after that, pretty much March 7th, that all this stuff became aware to the public. We all knew that we weren't sure if we were going to be doing any shows. It was really kind of odd because the information that was given to us wasn't clear, and I think a lot of the booking agents weren't sure what to do yet, and the clubs. So it really came down to kind of the last minute that it was decided that the tour that we were going to do in March was going to be canceled or actually just postponed to a future dates. So it was really strange, I have to say, because it was not only this information that we got living in New York State. It was really intense because of all this stuff going on in New York City.
Right.
And Governor Cuomo was really taking charge and informing, and still is informing us of what's going on. But this was kind of scary, very scary, and just really kind of surreal, I have to say.
Had you guys done any shows in February or March just before everything got blown out, where things were kind of weird at the venue, or where you started to feel like something was wrong prior to this, just the agents and stuff talking to you guys?
No.
Okay.
I mean, we were, let's see, we had a show, we were outside of New York City. There were 3. One was in New Jersey, one was, it was Port Chester, that
Capitol Theater?
Capitol Theater, yeah. We were playing with Big Head Todd there, and nobody really had any idea about anything. I mean, people were catching colds, but it's the time of year,
Right.
like it's quite cold.
Right, you
Very
expect
opposite
that.
the way it is here now. And then I actually did a little local jazz show on March 7th, and it was in a small club, and no one had any sense of any of that going on, anything going on until like the following week or even like 10 days later.
Wow, so that was your last show. I'm deducting from our conversation, March 7th. And it was a solo gig.
It was, I have a little group that I have fun with. We do jazz standards and just anything that I ask them to play.
Aw.
So my friend who's a chiropractor, Mark Rosen, and then we have an upright bass player and a guy here that plays jazz guitar. So we have it's fun. It's not only jazz, but it's like other songs that I don't really get a chance to play with other groups. And it's fun. We have a good time. But even at that show, there was some that attended there. He was an older actor who ended up getting the virus and dying.
And he was at that show.
He was at that show, yes. So he
Who was that?
his name, gosh, let's see. My mind's like,
Wow, and he just happened to be there at that gig.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he actually was doing some a pilot, Joey Jambria. Yeah. So he died at age 86.
And what was his name?
Um, Joey Jambria. So it's Giambra.
And
Jambra.
he was an actor, and he had a personal connection to you, or just randomly happened to show up at your gig.
I played viola on a recording of his a
Ah,
couple years ago. He was a very active guy, very interesting guy, really charming, and but he was mostly, I mean, he did everything. He was a policeman, but he wrote scripts, and he's this old Italian, old blood of Buffalo kind of guy. And so my friend brought him there. She worked on some of she worked on that movie pilot or the TV pilot that was shot here.
huh.
Yeah.
Okay, and then so that's a connection that you have. That's a good lead into where, because the pandemic, obviously backing up, we have a number of crises sort of happening now, but the pandemic was one of the initial ones, and it's taken an enormous toll on both health and economics, widespread job losses, financial hardship. The closest the country has really come to the Great Depression in almost 100 years. So many people have been sickened. Many lost their lives, like we were just talking about. And some internationally famous musicians, considering that you're a musician too, Manu Dibango, John Prine, Ellis Marsalis, Adam Schlesinger, Fountains of Wayne, actor Nick Cordero. Take a moment and share your reflections on how the crisis has touched you. Not necessarily that any of those were people that you were fans of or that it's touched you, but I just throw that out to give you a vehicle to sort of reflect on the cost of this thing.
Well, I think it's very difficult in all walks of life. I mean, this is a horrible situation that's come kind of out of the blue, it seems, and with the way our country has handled the situation, it's made it even more difficult, I think. But in general, it's just a horrible situation. And if you're in the arts, it's really tough because it's sort of just shut it all down. My friend's daughter is a dancer with the Washington Ballet, and she came and lived with us here because that totally shut down. And they did a lot of these virtual classes, and they're still doing it. These classes online with different dance masters from all over the world. So in a way, that's kind of an interesting part of this, like using technology to connect with other people. And in the dance world, that's been helpful. But like the thought of the future and performing is really, it's difficult because it keeps being postponed. Or if you are asked to play, there's this sense of, well, am I going to be at risk for my own health, or am I going to, by performing, am I going to bring a gathering together that might harm people? People in the audience they might contract this, and so that's something haven't really. I mean, I've never really thought about that much. I mean, when I was younger, I was always concerned about the cigarette smoke that was everywhere.
Sure.
We used to have signs up about that. Please don't smoke, but in front of the singers. But nobody really abided by that until finally that it did become illegal in New York State to do that. But yeah, it's a strange situation. Though I think in some ways, for me, it's been a way of slowing down and becoming more connected with nature and listening to birds. We have a lot of birds around here,
Mm.
and also focusing on my instruments and singing and just other things.
You said a few powerful things in there. One, you were talking about the dates. I mean, and we've had so many different kinds of performers on who have shared just a vast range of different. I mean, it's amazing to me, this series of cats and the way that all of you have a different interpretation of what's happened, different kinds of ways it's affected you, different ways it's touched you. And one of the ways that you mentioned was the affected tour dates. It sounded like, because everything just keeps getting bumped back. I mean, and it's the same for all of you, because, and especially as the thing gets worse and worse, it's kind of like, well, obviously the first round of rescheduling isn't going to work. We push them back further. That's not going to work. We push them back further. It looks like your affected tour dates were first rescheduled to June from what I saw. Then it looks like everything got bumped to at least October, except for a couple of shows. Is that where you're now scheduled to try and resume the tour in October, or give us a little more insight into what's happening?
I think our sense is that probably nothing with the group's going to happen in terms of performing
This year?
until the first of the year. Yeah, and there are venues here locally that have just started to have groups play small groups, and I don't know how some of these places are going to stay open. I mean, because it's just difficult to have such a small amount of people and to control it. And I think the scary part is like singing. You're singing you can't sing really with a mask on. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's
Not easy.
not easy, and maybe it would get rid of my sibilance, um, but yeah, it's just it's really hard to sort out how this is going to work out. And I think everybody, what I find really responsible is that the way the club owners and all the powers that be are taking this and saying, look, what's most important is people's health, and that if things have to be postponed, that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I don't see a way. I hear you. They're starting to do some local stuff here, and the same sort of reaction you get from most people that we just had Joe Satriani on. He's been doing international touring since the '80s and has
Yeah.
a lot of ways that this, his entire life has been based around that. And as he said, what you sort of said, it's like you can try to do a venue, a third capacity, a quarter capacity, or whatever. It may work for a month, but a long run, it's just never going to work like that. The economics of that don't work, and that doesn't even really take into account all of what would be needed to make it safe. Not to mention he explained how the crews from the local crew and the band's crew and everybody gets jammed into such a tight space backstage. So I see what you mean. It just doesn't look like any of this stuff is gonna go on. And there's this looking at your Facebook page prior to the October dates that are still listed on the 10,000 Maniacs Facebook page. There's a casino in Nevada and a date in Western Mass that are both still on the 10,000 Maniacs regular webpage for September. I'm
Yeah.
assuming they're gonna get blown out, or what's the story with that?
Yeah. They're not going to be happening. They're being postponed and or moved to future dates.
Okay. So everything will go to 2021.
I would say so. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's also the means of, as you were saying, like when you tour, when one tours, it depends on, there's lots of different levels of luxury and and means. But for the most part, when we tour, if we're sometimes we get a tour bus, and that is a very close
Right.
quartered place. Then, or we will drive places. It's usually the Buffalo gang will drive, and then Jamestown gang will drive. But then we go to hotels, and everything that you do is a very, it's very. It's made me much more aware of. They used to kind of tease me about being a bit of a germaphobe on the tour bus, but or in any place. But really, it's just kind of a little bit of a petri dish, though, some of those places. And but what I have to say is, like, an awareness that I have is just how grateful, like at the age I'm at, how lucky. You're looking back on the past and thinking, a year ago I was doing this and this, um, And like in all the shows that I've been able to be a part of, it's reflecting on it and having a lot of memories and feeling grateful and lucky.
Right, for the stuff that you just said it. I say the same thing. Sometimes I look at posters on the wall. I've got this framed poster of, who was it? It was Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Little Richard. They played in Honolulu. And I think, man, something like that. Well, obviously, when you got cats like that who aren't alive, it's not going to happen again. But yeah, the specialty of gigs and how unusual it was to do what we used to do, sitting so close to people and stuff. Yeah, you're right. It's very, very surreal to imagine.
I know, just, really, we're thinking how lucky we were to come to Hawaii.
Right.
That was just, the adventure part of touring, and for us, we were over the top thrilled to be able to play at the Blue Note and enjoy the beauty of the islands. I mean, it was just really, really wonderful.
Well, it's good you treasure stuff. You're a very appreciative person, and when I met you there at that venue, it struck me how lucky they were to, because this business is full of a lot of people who aren't as grounded or down to earth. So they're very lucky that they have that. And also, when you were talking about, as many people do, you start to appreciate things like the sound of the birds, for one. There are these ducks that show up in this area in Waikiki, and I love the sounds they make. I love looking at them waddling around. And when I think about how you've been not only appreciating those things in your area there in Buffalo, but how else have you been keeping busy? Or do you have pets, significant other, kids, anything that can keep you company? I mean, how do you spend your time there?
Well, I do have my partner. We live in this little house together. We don't. He has two grown children. His daughter is I guess ballerina is the proper term. Is a ballet dancer with the Washington Ballet. And then I have I've got a lot of family all over the place. But my father, I'm lucky because both my parents are still alive and kicking, and my dad lives about half an hour away with his wife. So I've become more connected with him, just visiting him more. That's the other thing, is when this started, one had to sort of say, who can I
See,
be around?
right.
And more of a selective
Bubble.
decision-making process, yeah. And so here, certainly what's been wonderful is that the seasons changed from our very long winter to spring, which is in this area. Spring is just like madness. Everybody's just so happy that the cold is gone, and the flowers are out. And so we've done a lot of gardening on one level or another. It's funny because John Lombardo and I have our duo, John and Mary. We had one of our CDs is called, the first one was Victory Gardens, garden, and then the second was The Weed Killer's Daughter. And it's funny because my dad just gave me this some kind of weed. Well, it's a dandelion extractor from the ground, and it's like I can't even use it. I don't even know how to use it, but it seems like it tears up the whole lawn. Yeah, certainly that's been a treasure, at least to have a yard, to see everything in bloom. And to really, I said, listening to the birds, there's music in the way they have their bird calls. There's a cardinal couple, and the cardinals have a very distinct chirp, I guess is the way. I don't want to say tweet because I don't like that.
Yeah, that word.
Yeah, and I've been reading a lot and watching different movies, and just connecting with my family a lot, I think, and friends.
Is that, when it comes to your folks, were you fearful of getting together with them? It would just seem like that was the one. I don't have my folks nearby. I don't have my mom anymore, but my dad is very, very far. But I remember we were talking to Dave Perner from Soul Asylum, and he was paraphrasing, but it was like his mom and dad were really close, but mom has Alzheimer's, folks are both old, and his dad was like, you just can't come over. We can't have the kids around. Did you have any concern hooking up with your parents or other family?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly what I would do is initially I would just drop, where my father lives, I'd bring them food. I bring them stuff that I stop at a store and get stuff like specialty breads and things like that and just drop it off. And then, like the first time that we got together, because I think it got to a point where they just really wanted to see, they were kind of isolated, you know.
Mm.
We just wanted to see each other, so we had the social distance with the masks on in the backyard. So that's what was really good about the weather getting warmer, to be able to do that.
Right.
And my mother is in North Carolina, and she really is by herself in her house. And then one of my sisters brings her food, but with my mom, I do a lot of FaceTime, and we've had Zoom meetings. The Zoom thing, it started out. I'm sure everybody talks about the way the Zoom when it first starts out, it's always so exciting, and like by like this 10th Zoom meeting, the younger kids are gone. Like some of my nieces and nephews sort of disappear, and then there's the the etiquette of who speaks when and how not to interrupt people. So it's
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
those are the new things that are all, you're talking about things that everybody, a lot of people can relate to or have heard other people talk about. I mean, just to hear, my dad is like 80, going on 82, and to hear him talk about doing his Zoom meetings has blown me away, because he was doing them long before I was doing any. I kind of look at the phone and think, my God, this guy is like staying right up on things. You know?
Oh yeah, I know. That's the way with my father, and even my mom. You know, she's pretty up to snuff, and that's why I feel rather. Oh, there's something that came up. It probably shouldn't. I'm rather, iffy about some of this technology, but it's fun to explore, and thank goodness it's here at the right time. You know.
Oh, totally. And it's connecting artists and giving you guys a voice to get onto all kinds of media platforms and share your stories. And when we're talking about your folks, as we do, the reason I kind of brought them up is you, prior to the pandemic, we used to do a lot like yourselves. Artists would come to town and we would talk to them about their lives. And this theme kind of developed in a lot of people, not everyone, because everyone's different, but some folks, when they were really, really young, they could either have been taken to shows by their parents, or their parents played an instrument around them, or somehow introduced them. Maybe it was a record that they got into, gave them their first record by a certain band. And when reading your bio, you really fit into that exact group of people, but I don't know the answer to it, and that is you've been connected to the violin since a very, very young age. Can you share the story with folks of who gets the credit for linking you up with this thing?
Well, let's see. My older sister played
Oh,
violin. So she's 2 years older. Susan Ramsey is her name, and she actually is a fiddle player. She's a fiddle player for this guy David Mallet. He's in Maine. He's a singer-songwriter. He wrote the Garden Song. That's one of his. I don't know if you know that song. Inch by inch, row by row.
okay. I don't, but I love hearing you sing it.
Um, so I was the type of little sister who, when I saw her doing something I wanted to do, but I would always do it very clumsily, being younger. And in Washington, D.C., the Suzuki method was sort of starting in the 60s. I think Dr. Suzuki came to the D.C., but anyway, we had a quarter-size violin. My sister Susan was playing, and then they really wanted the parent involved. So my mom also took lessons with my sister, and then we all shared one little violin, and I think because there's a lot of singing, my mom's has sung in the church and all that, and my dad's a retired English professor, and I think they had a great appreciation of the arts, and so like we didn't go to a lot of concerts, but I know the record collection. We had like Odetta and Simon and Garfunkel and the Beatles and Joan Baez, and, those are the popular, pretty cool popular. There's a lot of great music during that time to hear as a kid on the radio.
No, totally. That's part of it, huh? So it's the sister turning you on, and then you get the instruction and.
Yeah, and then it was something that we both took to pretty well, and then we moved to New York State when I was in like second or third grade. and we were kind of more advanced than the other kids in this. We lived in a small town, and that I think is always good when a child has something they can kind of identify with, or at least feel like it's something that is special, something special they can do, or they're good at, or whatever it seems like they are. So that's how. And then I never really practiced much. It was just my parents had the patience to keep me, keep me in some lessons, and we had stuff at school, and so.
What was your
But
first album and your first concert as a kid that you bought and that you were interested in? Or maybe someone took you to, and someone could have given you the record too, I guess. Because when you're at a certain young age, you're not really buying stuff. So you could say, Mom, I want that, or whatever.
yeah, let's see. I could almost embarrassingly say I got one of the first Mr. Rogers records. It was really little. But I do remember getting the Revolver. Maybe it was my sister's record, and we used to dance around to it. And then the Joan Baez record, that was my parents just loving listening to that. I don't know which one it was, but she looked beautiful on the. That was a part of it too. Is the record albums were
Artwork.
entertaining for children, for everybody. But there's artwork, as you said, yes. So I found that fascinating. And then I remember babysitting and buying both the double Beatles albums, the Red and the Blue.
Wow.
Yeah, I liked them a lot. For the first concert, I might say it might have been Neil Young I saw.
On your own, or someone take you?
I think I went with some people.
Okay, so you wanted to go, though. It wasn't like your parents or somebody took you, like, we're showing you what rock and roll is. We're going to see Neil.
No, my parents didn't do that, really, no.
Okay.
Mm-mm. It was more like just on my own or with my friends.
Yeah. And so Neil Young, about what year is this?
Probably 19. So I graduated from high school in 81, so it might have been like 79. Wow. And I remember also going to see Billy Joel, the Piano Man.
Yeah.
Concert.
Okay, back in same era then you're talking about.
Yeah. But,
those are cool. Those are good first. Those are definitely interesting first concerts. Neil, that's pretty cool. And I was looking at your various web resources to learn about you, and forgive me for reading from your Wikipedia page. Generally speaking, I'd say it's like 80 to 90% accuracy rate over hundreds of interviews using that material. So I'm going to go out on a limb, and we'll see if any of these interesting names you actually worked with, or if the Wikipedia page is wrong. But considering your New York State connection, for instance, under other credits, one finds Goo Goo Dolls.
Oh yeah, they Johnny and Robbie lived across the street from me in Buffalo, and so that wasn't the reason that we worked together. But they worked with this guy Armin Petrie, who John and I have worked with for a long time. But he worked with us on our John and Mary albums, and so he was kind of the connector between us and the Goo Goo Dolls. And we used to see them. Like John Resnick there's a place called the Continental that now it doesn't exist anymore. It was more like kind of a punk club in downtown Buffalo, and he was like a bar back. I think.
Wow.
And then everybody was pretty closely connected because it was all West Side Buffalo. So when I got asked to play on that was Superstar Car Wash, a song called We Are the Normal. It was Armin that probably brought us together to play. So.
Early 90s, like 93, it says.
Yeah.
So when the Goo Goo Dolls were just starting to become much more of an international name. We've had Johnny on the show. He's absolutely such a cool dude, and lots of fun to sit and.
He's really quick-witted, and I just did something with him a couple years ago, maybe more. It was a fundraiser for autism. It was a song. What was it called? Not So Different. It's like a single that I sang on, and the woman Cassandra. I forget her last name now. Kubinski, I think it is. But it was a song that was recorded, and then the proceeds went to this autism awareness
And Johnny was on that too.
Yeah, he sang one of the verses, and then we did a concert in Buffalo. And I think the proceeds went to Canisius College that has a program for autistic children.
It's awesome.
Um,
It's a
yeah,
great
and
thing.
then Armin, of course, was involved with that because his son has autism. Or he's
Uh,
on the spectrum.
that's a huge thing to use your talent to do good things, and not a surprise that someone like you would be doing that. Another name there, Warren, the late great Warren Zevon.
Yeah, yes, we toured, John and I, as our John and Mary duo. We would get these tours. I don't know, somehow I can't remember who matched us up with him. But he was a pretty cool guy. We did a lot of dates in the South, I think it was. And it was interesting because like he really would, before the shows, he really spent a lot of time making sure his piano was in tune with the grand piano, and had just such a huge fan base. People just loved him.
Oh,
He was
totally.
really great.
Did you record with him, or you guys were just opening and playing on the same bill?
We opened for him, played
Still
on the same
cool.
bill. He asked me to play on a song with him on stage one night, and I almost jumped out of my skin because the monitor was so loud. It was crazy. I was like, ah! Um, but yeah,
So you did play with him in concert.
yeah,
Well, good for you. Look at that. That's an amazing. And then another name there, but and I won't exhaust all the names. We'll leave some for folks to go and dig out on their own. But I'll pick one more of them, and that's Jackson Brown.
yeah. And that also was a lucky situation because I was playing, and I lived in California for about 5 or 6 years, and I was working with this woman, Jude Johnstone, who's a singer-songwriter, and she was friends with Jackson Brown, and she was doing a concert like in Avila Beach, and he was playing there too, so he asked me to play on a song with him. So
Had to be a
that,
thrill, huh?
yes, it was. It was really great. So yeah, and then of course there's Ani DeFranco, who is from Buffalo too. I've worked with on her some of her early albums. I played on them. Um,
Yeah, she's
so
cool. Well, I didn't want to spoil everything about your Wikipedia page, but hey, Wikipedia just got a glowing endorsement for accuracy from our little session so far.
something, but yeah.
Some things work out, and when it comes to Mary Ramsey's life
Well, the
story,
age thing may not be right.
what'd you
Might
say?
be off 10 or 20 years. The age thing.
There
I
you
would
go.
say I was born. Well, I was born earlier or something than I should have been.
Well,
But like,
we'll say it's 1980 that you were born. Now that won't work with our interview, but it's a young age for sure. And then besides that, when we think obviously, as I said at some point earlier in talking to you, we there's multiple crises sort of happening right now, which have brought us together again via technology, as you were saying, which is such a nice thing to have the technology. Besides the pandemic, we've had these other issues spiral into their own crises, both the Black Lives Matter and then the related yet separate police reform movement. Have you been touched by these? Do you have any thoughts to share?
well, of course, we had the protests in Buffalo, New York, downtown, and yeah, I think it's something that's been way overdue. Like just the police brutality and then the inequality. I know in the city there's discrepancies in neighborhoods that are pretty profound in terms of racial divide, etc. And I see this as being the right time for this to happen, in a way, because of being in isolation or in quarantine. I think it's given people more time to really kind of look at what's going on and observe it. And with technology being able to capture what's going on, the average person can film somebody doing something like what happened when there was a protest downtown in our city. There was an older gentleman, like a 75-year-old man, who was pushed over by some police
I saw that.
and fell and hit his head. It was pretty brutal, and people walked by, which I just don't even. Those police just kind of walked by, which was just very disturbing. Um, and I think there's going to be real change. Just this is in a different way than the revolutions in the past, like the 60s revolutions that were happening. I mean, it's kind of interesting because like the Me Too movement and then, the Black Lives Matter movements, they seem to be extensions of what was the kernels that started way back when. I mean, way back, but that I think there's more action being taken and laws being made and changes that are going to be better for so many people,
It is definitely it's an incredible time. It's a frightening time, if I can confess. Just why, I mean, not so much that part of it, because I agree with everything you just said, but just the intensity of all of this coming together, the election, sitting there with so many ways that could go wrong, and obviously with this health crisis, then you've got the masks, and you've already mentioned that you wear them, so I guess I sort of know where you stand on that, but I don't have to tell you there's this whole, unfortunately, we're the one country in the world that just doesn't seem to be able to use this simplest of piece of technology to help keep each other safe.
Yeah, and it's strange. I would think that there's such, the mask, there's so many people, and at least in our city, I see a lot of people wearing masks, and a lot of them, I think people find comfort. It's like, it's like almost having your blankie or something like that, like you're the mask, it's a sense of security.
Right.
And I also think that there are people who like having the kind of more of an anonymity feeling, like that you're not immediately recognized. I mean, sometimes that's sort of a comforting feeling too, it's no matter what color you are, or what your orientation, with sex, whatever, you have the mask on, and it's just, to me, it's just so logical, and I couldn't see it any other way. Like I don't. It just seems just idiotic not to wear a mask or even wear gloves.
I like that anonymity part. I hadn't thought about that. All the autograph seekers chasing Mary around, having a little bit more of a difficult time.
No,
I'm just giving you a hard time.
But I do see, like, sometimes I'll see some guys like will have the mask on. I can see that they kind of feel like, this tough, cool thing, and women, some women will have like more eye makeup on or whatever. I mean, that's just sort of the lighter side of the situation. But yeah, it's interesting because when we were in Hawaii, we saw a lot of people with masks on.
Right. No, and we have them. I mean, it's just I walk to and from work. I walk 1.25 miles each way. It is the most frightening ordeal, both 2 times a day to do. I'm dodging people left and right. Yes, a lot of people have them on, but a lot of people don't. They'll be aiming right at you. They'll come out of nowhere. They'll come jogging. I mean, we'd be here all day if I talked about the frightening nature of that walk. So yes, a lot of people do comply with it. I'm grateful for everybody who complies, but as you can imagine.
Yeah. I was saying, even back, we were there in last September, people had masks on.
Yep.
Like I had never, I hadn't seen as many people wearing masks from, maybe, I don't know what was happening there. I mean, yeah.
I agree. We used to, and I hope that we have a larger. They say I have read that we have a large percentage of people complying. The mayor and some of our administrative officials are very frustrated, maybe with the people who aren't. But yes, I know what you mean, and there has been a culture of that, and it's been in Asia for some time. And as Joe Satriani pointed out, and now Di Meola as well, when you tour over there, it's not an uncommon sight, and it's very common for a decade anywhere in Asia. It's a sign of respect. It means, like, if I even think I have a cold, I'm going to put on a mask before I go somewhere to try to be kind to everyone else.
I think that's a very admirable way to be.
Yep. No, I get that. So on a positive note, which is your favorite? So you do the violin, you do the viola. What else do you play? Do you play piano a little? Do you have that there too?
A little bit, yep. Yeah, I have an electric piano, a Casio 88 weighted keyboard. I have a little ukulele.
Oh wow.
I know, I'm trying to say it properly. I was actually, what was interesting is I was doing a little bit of research because, the Over the Rainbow,
is
the famous one by your Israel, Kama Kavi Ko Lei, I don't know, I'm not saying it right. How do you,
Brother is, they say.
Kamakaliko Ole. Um, well, the man that wrote Over the Rainbow, the music was Harold Arland, who grew up on the east side of Buffalo.
Wow.
Um, so I thought that's kind of a cool connection because um, why am I bringing this up? Well, because of Hawaii, of
Sure.
course, and how famous and how beautiful that song is. His version of it is Izzy or is
Is, brother is, they would call him. Brother is.
how sensitive and beautiful that is, and then um, just how like Harold Arland, he grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, and back then um, they had neighborhoods like African American, Jewish, and like German populations were living in this neighborhood. So he was in one of the first integrated schools in like 19, oh gosh, probably like 1920 or 21, which is interesting to think like that he had a household, like his upstairs was rented. His parents rented the upstairs of the house to African American family, and so he heard a lot of jazz influences and
Mm.
different types of music that influenced, of course, his beautiful music. You know, his keyboard playing, his compositions.
And is that rainbow? That's funny you say that. Is he like at all referring to the rainbow of being that multicultural package that you just kind of described? That's ironic.
He didn't write the lyrics,
Okay.
but obviously the music is so well inspirational. I mean, this
Right.
other guy named Yip Harburg wrote
The
the
words.
lyrics to that.
Okay.
I thought that that's pretty neat that connection of like who would have known like if Iz knew that the song that he was singing came from this guy in a city like Buffalo, you know.
Yeah, yeah. But with that cool story, like you just described, that multicultural kind of accepting, that story of acceptance, that story of what America is supposed to really be all about.
Yeah, and the fact that back then, I mean, I think there are times when a lot of communities did get along,
Right.
you know, and to learn the jazz tradition that was happening in the 20s and 30s, like the amazing music coming from there, and he was even saying like the cantor, his father was a cantor in a synagogue, and the way his father sang, he felt like kind of had those elements that were part of these different sounds he was hearing around, you know, these different styles, which I find interesting.
I like that. Well, I like that message of acceptance and tolerance, which is so critical today. Well, on that note of music, as we're talking about it, which of your instruments do you happen to have nearest to you? And would you like to? Because I was telling Mary via email before we set that up, it could be a nice thing to hear her play something. She's an incredible. When you see 10,000 Maniacs, it's like this bonus thing that they throw at you in addition to her voice and the stunning way she interprets those tunes. When she'll break that thing out, and then it adds like this entirely different layer to the show. And I was thinking, as I said to you in the email, as we were chatting back and forth, maybe you've got something that could go well, provide some inspiration. A lot of people needing inspiration right now. I don't have to tell you, and but you know better. What would come naturally to you to want to play?
Well, I thought I might do Over the Rainbow,
Wow! Look at you! Look at
but
you! You ferocious
feel
individual! You. That's amazing.
yeah. So I don't know how this is going to sound. It's our air conditioning crap. I shouldn't say crapped out. It's stopped. And I guess I had to. Yeah, we had too many electrical things going, so I'm a little bit. Let's just say dewy, but I can try, and you can tell me. Should I just do a little test to see if
Yeah.
it sounds like?
Let's do a test and we'll get the levels.
Okay. Of course, my boost.
my, that is unbelievable. Well, I mean, it sounds phenomenal.
Well, that's Over the Rainbow on viola, on a sweaty viola of mine.
It sounds
Um,
incredible.
well, thank you. And I just have to say, I have a CD that I worked on this year, and we were supposed to have a release party. This is my friend. I'll tell you about it if you can't see it. So my friend's name is Vincent O'Neill, and he runs a theater company called the Irish Classical Theater here in Buffalo, New York. So the last couple of years, we've been working on a project of William Butler Yeats's poems,
Hmm.
where he recites the poems, and then I put some of them to music, either singing or with kind of just little embellishments of the violin and viola. And we were supposed to have a CD release party in May, and of course that's been postponed till whenever. But if you want me to play a little bit more, I could.
Oh, that would be wonderful to hear. I mean, and that was just incredible, though, what you just played. It just was smoking. I didn't know if that was the sound check version. I was just sitting there very quietly. I didn't want to say, "Oh yeah, it sounds good. We're ready."
Oh, I could play it again if you want. Did it sound okay?
Oh my God, it sounded amazing. It was stunning to listen to. You can do either or both or whatever. I mean, it sounded absolutely amazing. I set you good levels. I brought it down so that you weren't, because I didn't want to peek it out or something. It sounded stunning. I can't believe that we got something like that.
Okay, if you think it sounds fine, I mean, I could play something else, or I don't need to play something else. But the other thing is a little more somber that I.
Yeah, let's hear something from the. Give us a sample from the record. What would you like to play?
Okay, and we do this. I also sang a song on the CD of his poetry to music, a cappella, so I could do that. Are you having mostly instrumental?
I mean, I'm at work. It's been all kind. Yeah, so far it's been well. Soul Asylum actually did "Somebody to Shove" acoustic for us, which was absolutely stunning. Which is the number one hit of theirs with just Dave Perner on the guitar and playing it. It was just, but so most of it has been instrumental. But that's the neat thing about this. Everybody's doing something different, and it's all very humbling. And whatever you want to do, we'll all be so grateful. And I'm just delighted that you would be so kind and humble and down to earth to do this.
Well, I'll try to play a little bit of this first, and
Okay.
then see if the level's okay and everything.
Levels are good. Wherever it was before, I'm leaving it.
Okay. I went down to the hazel wood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream, and caught a little silver trout. When I had laid it on the floor, I went to blow the fire aflame, but something rustled on the floor, and someone called me by my name. It had become a glimmering girl with apple blossoms in her hair, who called me by my name and ran, and faded through the brightening air. Though I am old with wandering through hollow lands and hilly lands, I will find out where she has gone, and kiss her lips and take her hands, and walk among tall dapple grass, and pluck till time and times are done, the silver apples of the moon, the golden apples of the sun.
Man, that is just moving stuff to hear you. What's the name of that one, too, Mary?
That's a poem called Song of Wandering Angus that was set to music.
And then the
So
music before that was
that was just an interlude piece I composed, I guess is the right word.
for that
Uh,
record, though.
yeah, it's just something to kind of put between the poems, or actually, yeah.
Like, okay, on the it's like a bridge in between the actual in between the words on the album is how that would be used.
It's like an intermezzo. It's between some
I
poems, you
like
know.
that intermezzo. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's what you might have called it.
It's awesome. It's so
Yeah.
cool. And you played this like classic that a song was so big in Hawaii too that and it's big all over and it's such an inspirational song too during what has been taking place to do the Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I mean that just gives me chills. And then to hear your beautiful voice. What's
And
that?
to hear, think about, like, I think about that music being composed right here where we are, right in this, well, meaning from somebody who's from this part of the country,
Right.
and the reflections, and just how that song is eternal. And I find it a song of hope. Like, I actually played a funeral. It's probably the only performance I've done. Our drummer, Jerome Augustiniak, his mother died about 2 weeks ago. And so, I mean, there again, you're asked to do something, and you think, oh, should I do this or not? But people were wearing masks in the funeral, in the church, and that was something that we played over the rainbow. And I find it to be, it's a it's a reflective song. It's beautiful. It's timeless, and like to listen to how is interpreted it's just beautiful. They were saying that some people may only know that, younger people may only know that version of Over the Rainbow, but
Right.
to have something have so many dimensions, this music have a transporting, healing, uplifting, but also I think in this time thinking about Over the Rainbow, getting over to a time when this is over with, this pandemic, and there's a cure, and we can go back to that kind of sort of paradise we were living in, or we thought it was, at least not having that to worry about, same things to worry about anymore.
That is a huge sentiment. We can't leave it on a better place than what you just said, and I'm sure so many people are hoping the same thing. It's really, really powerful. We're so lucky. It's Mary Ramsey, voice, violin, viola player from 10,000 Maniacs. She does her own stuff. She's been the John and Mary folk duo. What's the name of the thing that the record that people can look for?
Well, the CD that, oh, you mean the one
Yep.
this Irish one? Well, it's W.B. Yeats poems, words and music. It's not really out into the public yet, but we're gonna probably get it up in some fashion. We have actually had like 300 CDs we made. We are going to sell them at we do the old-fashioned things, but at some point we're going to put it up on the web somehow, so uh, it could be listened to in that
Yeah,
format.
put it on Spotify and put it on YouTube and stuff.
Yeah. And then actually with 10,000 Maniacs, we are working on another CD, another album, another whatever you want to call it. So that individually we've been working, writing music. So that's been part of what I've spent some time doing. We've all been doing that besides working on our yards and gardens and stuff like that, and cooking.
So working on it remotely, like doing your musical parts and actually recording stuff, or just kind of getting the songs together.
Getting the songs together, yeah. I think eventually we will go to either Silver Creek, which is a town between here and Jamestown, or down to Jamestown and try to do a streaming concert when we all feel comfortable enough.
Is Dennis
Yeah.
still at that radio station?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that Jamestown, where that is?
That's Jamestown. Yes. But we as a band still felt like reluctant. I saw John Lombardo yesterday. I hadn't seen him in a while, and he's been very reluctant to go out and do much more than shopping and um, filling up his gas tank and going back inside. But it was good to see him. I mean, I talk to him every day. But there is that sense. It's kind of when do you feel safe enough to do what you want to do again. It's interesting to see the different, the reluctance or lack of reluctance of getting back into the swing of what was before.
We all approach it at a sort of a different speed, and people have different fears and stuff depending on your medical situation or your age or what you've seen or heard about this thing. Hosting All Things Considered, some of the reports they play on on the show, so serious to hear the stuff about what this could be like to get. Yeah, it's like, I don't want that.
Yes. Yeah, I know. You don't want anybody that you love, and anybody in general, anybody to get it. So it's very it's very scary. I think it can it's the other thing that I found I've been doing a lot of is meditation. And meditation is so much about breathing, and this disease is so much about breathing or not being able to breathe, and that's something that I just I find that all these different there's a lot of meditation out there now, but I think that the different people like Tara Brach and the Calm app, but they're so helpful. I think they're very helpful to people and really doing healing work,
Sharing your music is a healing thing to have done, and to play a little bit like that so selflessly and to be so generous like that. I just can't thank you enough on behalf of anyone and everyone who listens and finds inspiration that you would do that and share your time with us. I hope you tell the folks, Dennis especially, and Stephen and everyone, we send our aloha and want them all to stay safe.
I will, for sure. I'll tell everyone in the group, and it's great talking with you.
Oh, it's fantastic talking with you. Hope you had fun. It was so much fun for me. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Well, I love doing this. I mean, I was all excited. I got really excited today about it. I even put my nice dress on, but
for radio.
Yeah, radio. Aloha, it's Mary Ramsey of 10,000 Maniacs. It's my turn to ask you to support Hawaii Public Radio. You may remember when I was a guest on this show, All Things Considered. It was a lot of fun to speak with my friend Dave Lawrence. And if you dig the show as much as I do, please make a pledge. Here's how, and a big mahalo for your support.
Man, I couldn't ask for more. I'm giving you a big virtual hug and a high five, and just, you said so many nice things today. It was so meaningful. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. As I said, I was really excited about doing this, and I hope that we can come to your neck of the woods again someday.
Gosh, I hope so too. And we'll stay in touch. And if this thing just keeps dragging on for a while, then we'll find another way to get you back on and play some more stuff on the show. Okay?
Right. And as I said again, if something sounds funky, just let me know, and I would love to do it again, because I'm totally cool with that.
You're awesome like that. I'm really, really appreciative. All right, young lady, stay safe and enjoy the birds and your playing and your writing. Good luck writing on the next 10,000 Maniacs record, which you're working on, and we'll talk again soon. You know how to reach me, and really do. Please stay safe. That's the thought I leave you with. Please do stay safe.
You too. Take care.
Aloha, Mary.
Okay, aloha.